Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive into some fascinating source material.
It's great to be here.
Today, we're diving into the world of advertising slogans,
Oh, yeah.
specifically how they reflect and even shape the culture of their time.
And how some of them really burrow their way into our collective consciousness.
I mean, even today, you hear someone say, blah, pop, fizz, fizz, and instantly you know what they're talking about.
Exactly. Or because I'm worth it.
Right. It's amazing how a few well-chosen words can have such staying power.
So what's on the docket for today's deep dive?
Well, we're going to take a close look at two iconic campaigns that revolutionized how we think about hair color and maybe even about ourselves.
Ooh, hair color.
Yeah. First up is Shirley Polikoff's Does She or Doesn't She for Clairol.
Ah, a classic.
And then we'll fast forward a couple of decades to Elon Specs Because I'm Worth It for L'Oreal Preference.
Both campaigns that really made their mark.
Absolutely. So let's rewind back to the 1950s when dyeing your hair was considered a little bit taboo.
Oh, yeah. Back then, it wasn't exactly something you'd shout from the rooftops.
Right. More like something you do in secret, almost like you were ashamed of it.
Exactly. It was associated with, well, certain types of women.
Not exactly the image most women were going for.
Not at all. But then Shirley Polikoff comes along and completely changes the game.
How so?
Well, instead of using glamorous models in her ads for Clairol, she decided to feature everyday women.
Really?
Yeah, the girl next door type. She even included children in some of the ads.
Children in hair color ads.
Yep. The idea was to portray hair coloring as a natural, wholesome family activity.
So it wasn't about being some kind of femme fatale.
Not at all. It was about looking your best for your husband, for your family.
It was about fitting in.
Exactly, which was incredibly important in the post-war era where conformity was highly valued.
And it worked, didn't it?
Oh, it worked brilliantly. Clairol sales skyrocketed, and hair coloring went from taboo to mainstream practically overnight.
I remember reading this story about a woman who claimed that Clairol helped her land a husband in Bermuda.
Ah, yes, the famous Bermuda husband anecdote. It was a brilliant marketing tactic, even if the story was later revealed to be fabricated.
Wait, what? She made it up.
Yep. But that just goes to show you the power of a good story, even if it's not entirely true.
People want to believe in those happy endings.
Exactly. And Polikoff knew how to tap into those desires to create this aspirational narrative that women could buy into.
It's almost ironic, isn't it? Here she is promoting this image of the perfectly coiffed housewife,
While she herself was a career woman, a trailblazer in the advertising world.
breaking free from those very expectations she was portraying in her ads.
It speaks to the complexities of that era and the pressures women faced, especially immigrants like Polikoff.
Trying to find their place in a rapidly changing society.
Exactly. And does she, or doesn't she? Perfectly captured that tension between conformity and individuality.
It's like it gave women permission to express themselves,
But in a way that was still socially acceptable?
subtly enhancing their natural beauty.
Right. It wasn't about a radical transformation.
It was about becoming a slightly better version of yourself.
The you that everyone would love and admire.
And isn't it interesting how the slogan itself plays on that curiosity, the desire to know the secret?
Does she? Or doesn't she? It's like a little whisper, a shared secret among women.
A wink and a nod to the power of transformation.
And it worked like a charm.
So Polikoff really hit a nerve with that campaign.
Oh, absolutely. She understood the anxieties and aspirations of her target audience perfectly.
And by tapping into those deeper emotions, she managed to create a cultural phenomenon.
A phenomenon that's still relevant today.
Because even though times have changed, that desire to fit in, to be accepted, to be the best version of ourselves,
It's something we all still grapple with.
no matter what era we live in,
Now, fast forward a couple of decades to the 1970s.
and the cultural landscape shifts dramatically.
A whole new generation of women with a whole new set of values and expectations.
Enter Elon Specht and her iconic slogan for L'Oreal Preference. Because I'm worth it.
Ah, now that's a statement.
Talk about a bold departure from the subtle does she approach.
Right. It's no longer about seeking external validation
It's about owning your worth, making choices for yourself.
and celebrating your individuality.
So how did this groundbreaking slogan come about?
Well, the story goes that Specht, a young copywriter at the time, was pretty frustrated with the male-dominated advertising world.
And its portrayal of women.
Exactly. So she channeled that frustration into a defiant act of self-expression.
And Because I'm Worth It was born.
That's the story. It was like she was saying, I'm not going to play by your rules anymore.
It was a rallying cry for a generation of women demanding recognition and equality.
And the timing was perfect, coinciding with the rise of the feminist movement.
It was like the slogan gave voice to this newfound sense of empowerment.
And it resonated deeply with women all over the world.
It wasn't just about hair color
It
anymore.
was about something much bigger.
A statement of self-worth, a declaration of independence.
And the L'Oreal spokeswomen over the years perfectly embodied that spirit.
From Meredith Baxter Burney
Representing a divorced woman entering law school,
to Sybil Shepherd and Heather Locklear.
embodying different facets of strength and independence.
They all projected this sense of confidence and self-assurance.
It was like they were saying, I am woman, hear me roar.
And that roar was heard loud and clear.
So we have two slogans, two different eras, two different approaches.
But both tapping into the desires and anxieties of women at that particular moment in time.
And both achieving phenomenal success.
But how did they know which buttons to push, which emotional chords to strike?
That's where our next source comes in. Herta Herzog and the fascinating world of motivational research.
Motivational research. I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Well, Herzog was this Viennese psychologist who believed that to truly understand consumer behavior, you had to go beyond the superficial data.
Like demographics and sales figures.
Exactly. She wanted to delve into the underlying motivations, the hidden desires that drive our choices.
So she was like a detective of the mind.
Precisely. She used techniques like in-depth interviews and projective tests to uncover the subconscious desires that influence our purchasing decisions.
Fascinating. Can you give us an example?
Sure. One of her most famous studies involved Alka-Seltzer.
Alka-Seltzer. That's for heartburn, right?
That's what everyone thought. But Herzog discovered something really interesting.
What was that?
She found that people used Alka-Seltzer for both headaches and stomach aches, but for different psychological reasons.
How so?
Well, people who took it for headaches saw themselves as victims of external forces, like stress or tension. But those who used it for stomach aches often felt guilty about overeating.
So it was the same product, but completely different emotional states driving its consumption.
Exactly. And this insight led to that brilliant slogan, plop, plop, fizz, fizz. Oh, what a relief it is.
It addressed both the victim and the culprit,
The headache sufferer and the overeater.
making it universally relatable.
Genius. Right.
Absolutely. But how does this all connect back to Polikoff and Specht and their hair dye empires?
Well, I think both of them perhaps intuitively understood what Herzog was proving scientifically,
Which is?
that even the most mundane products can become deeply intertwined with our sense of self.
They tapped into those underlying desires.
Yeah.
The need for belonging, the yearning for transformation, the quest for self-worth.
And they connected those desires to a product that, on the surface, is simply about changing your hair color.
They recognized that people don't just buy products. They buy into the emotions, the aspirations, the identities that those products represent.
And that's a powerful insight, one that has implications far beyond the world of hair dye.
So what happens when we start to peel back the layers of these campaigns and examine the deeper implications of their messages? That's where we'll pick up in part 2 of our deep dive.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the world of advertising.
So we've uncovered how campaigns like Does She
Mhm.
or Doesn't She and Because I'm Worth It tapped into much deeper desires than just wanting a new hair color.
Yeah, they cleverly reflected and even shaped the cultural landscape of their times, speaking to women's evolving sense of self.
But what happens when we start to question the messages behind those campaigns and the potential impact they have on our perceptions and behaviors?
It's a slippery slope, from persuasion to manipulation, isn't it? Where do we draw the line?
Exactly. Take those ads that make you feel like you're not cool or successful unless you have the latest gadget or fashion trend. It's like they're preying on our insecurities.
Right. That's a great example of how advertising can exploit our deep-seated desire for belonging and social acceptance. It creates this sense of inadequacy, implying that you need this product to be happy or to fit in.
And it's not just about individual ads.
Yeah.
Think about the cumulative effect of being bombarded with these messages day after day.
Yeah, it can shape our values and beliefs in profound ways, for sure.
It's like this constant drip feed of idealized images, perfect bodies, and unattainable lifestyles.
Right, it can create a culture of dissatisfaction and a never-ending cycle of wanting more and more.
It's like the saying, comparison is the thief of joy. And advertising is built on comparison, isn't it? Always showing us something better, something we supposedly lack.
Precisely. And that's where the ethical dilemma comes in. Is it responsible to constantly fuel this sense of dissatisfaction, especially when it can have a negative impact on people's self-esteem and mental well-being?
It makes you wonder if there's a way to harness the power of advertising for good, to promote positive values and create a more balanced and healthy relationship with consumption.
Well, there are certainly brands out there that are trying to do just that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're focusing on sustainability, ethical sourcing, and promoting a more realistic and inclusive view of beauty.
It's encouraging to see that shift happening, even if it's still a small part of the advertising landscape.
It is, but ultimately, as consumers, it comes down to being more aware and discerning, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Don't just passively absorb the messages you're being bombarded with.
Right. Question the motives behind the ads, analyze the techniques being used, and consider the impact on your own values and beliefs.
It's like becoming an advertising detective, peeling back the layers to see what's really going on.
Exactly. Pay attention to the subtle cues, the emotional triggers, and the unspoken messages.
Because once you start to see the patterns, you'll be better equipped to resist manipulative tactics and make more conscious choices.
I think so.
This deep dive has definitely made me more aware of the subtle ways advertising can influence our thinking. It's not always about blatant manipulation, but often about playing on our emotions and desires in ways we might not even realize.
Absolutely. And remember, the most powerful form of persuasion is often the one we direct at ourselves.
What do you mean by that?
Well, think about the stories we tell ourselves, the beliefs we hold about ourselves, and the expectations we set for ourselves.
Yeah.
These internal narratives can be just as influential as any external advertising message.
So it's like we're constantly bombarded with advertising, not just from the outside world, but from our own minds as well.
Precisely. And just as we can learn to be more critical of external advertising, we can also learn to challenge our own limiting beliefs and cultivate a more positive and empowering inner dialogue.
That's a really interesting perspective. It's like taking control of the advertising that's happening inside our own heads.
Exactly. By becoming more aware of our own thoughts and beliefs, we can start to rewrite the narratives that are holding us back and create a more positive and fulfilling self-image.
So this deep dive has taken us from the psychology of slogans to the ethics of persuasion, and now to the power of self-awareness. It's amazing how these seemingly disparate topics are all interconnected.
It's all part of the fascinating tapestry of human behavior, isn't it? How we influence each other, how we make decisions, and how we shape our own realities.
And it's a journey that continues to unfold as we explore new ways to connect with each other and make sense of the world around us. We'll delve deeper into this in the final part of our exploration of the power of the pitch. Stay with us. Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into the power of the pitch.
It's been quite a journey, hasn't it? Exploring those iconic slogans and delving into the psychology behind them.
Yeah, we've uncovered a lot. From the subtle persuasion of, does she or doesn't she, to the bold declaration of, because I'm worth it.
And how those campaigns reflected the changing cultural landscape and women's evolving sense of self.
But it goes even deeper than that.
Oh, absolutely. It's about recognizing that persuasion isn't just a tool used by advertisers. It's something we all engage in every single day.
In countless interactions.
Exactly. Think about it. We're constantly trying to influence each other, whether we realize it or not.
Okay, I see what you mean. Like convincing a friend to see a certain movie.
Right. Or negotiating a raise at work.
Or even just getting your kids to eat their vegetables.
It's all persuasion. And understanding those principles we've been discussing can actually make us more effective communicators in all areas of our lives.
So instead of just being bombarded by messages, we can actually learn to use those same techniques in a positive and ethical way.
Exactly. It's about harnessing that power for good.
Can you give us an example?
Well, remember Herta Herzog and her work on motivational research? Uncovering those hidden desires that drive our choices?
Of course. That was fascinating.
Right. And that same understanding can help us craft more persuasive arguments, whether it's a presentation at work,
Or even just having a more productive conversation with your partner.
It's all about tapping into those deeper needs and motivations, finding that common ground, framing your message in a way that resonates with the other person.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But it's not just about being more persuasive, is it? It's also about being more aware of when others are trying to persuade us.
Exactly. So we don't fall prey to those manipulative tactics we were talking about earlier.
Right. Those ads that make you feel like you're not enough unless you buy their product.
Exactly. Once you start to see those patterns, the emotional appeals, the subtle cues, you're better equipped to make more conscious choices.
It's like we've been given this new lens for viewing the world, one that allows us to see beyond the surface and understand the forces at play.
I like that. A new lens. It's about becoming more discerning, more critical in our thinking, not just accepting everything we're told at face value.
It's been quite a journey, hasn't it? From analyzing those iconic slogans to exploring the ethics of persuasion, and now even applying those principles to our own internal dialogue.
And it all comes back to that central theme, the power of the pitch. Whether it's an advertising campaign, a political speech, or even just a conversation with a friend.
It's about understanding how we influence each other, how we make decisions, and ultimately, how we shape our own realities.
And that's a power we all possess.
That's a great point to end on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the power of the pitch. We hope it's given you some food for thought.
It's been a pleasure exploring these ideas with you.
And to our listeners, we encourage you to keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep diving deep. Until next time.